I didn't understand how someone could make you feel small without ever raising their voice until I met Denise. The first time it happened, it was so quick and quiet that I almost convinced myself I imagined it. But that's how she worked. Little chips at my confidence, tiny nudges that didn't look like much until you stepped back and realized half the wall was gone. I work as a delivery driver for a plumbing supply company. It's simple, steady work. I like the routine, the early mornings, the way the city feels half asleep when I start my route. Before Denise moved in, my life was boring in a comfortable way. I'd come home, make dinner, watch a game, maybe call my brother. Nothing fancy, but it felt like mine. Denise said she loved that about me, that I was stable. I didn't realize at the time that the way she said it wasn't really a compliment. It was more like she was describing something she planned to rearrange. Small things came first. She'd wrinkle her nose when I made dinner, saying she wasn't used to heavy food, then eat half of it anyway. Or she'd ask why I still wore the same jacket from last year, her tone light, but with an edge sharp enough to leave a mark. I kept brushing it off. Everyone has quirks, right? Then she started fixing things around the apartment. Not physically, social things. She'd move my mail into piles I didn't recognize. Tell my friends I was tired when she didn't want company. Answer questions for me before I even opened my mouth. She made it sound like she was helping, like she knew what I meant before I did. At first, I thought it was just her personality. She liked to be in control, sure, but some people are wired that way. It didn't occur to me that she was slowly taking pieces of my life and putting them under her control instead of mine. The signs were subtle, just enough to make me second-guess myself. One night, I came home later than usual because traffic on the bridge had been a mess. When I walked in, Denise was sitting at the kitchen table with her arms crossed like she'd been waiting to deliver bad news. "You should have called," she said. "I was worried." I apologized, but the way she looked at me, like I'd failed some test, stuck with me long after we went to bed. She wasn't actually worried. She was irritated that I hadn't reported to her. That's when the pattern became harder to ignore. If I laughed at a joke she didn't like, she'd go quiet and ask why I thought that was funny. If I spent too long at the store, she'd claim she felt abandoned. If I didn't agree with her opinion right away, she'd tell me I was being difficult or closed off. Individually, the moments were tiny. Put together, they painted a picture I didn't want to look at. The turning point came on a Sunday morning. I was getting ready to visit my mom, something I do every week. Denise looked up from her coffee and asked, "Do you really have to go today?" I told her yes, and she sighed in this disappointed, wounded way that made me feel like I was doing something wrong. When I came back that afternoon, she'd rearranged the living room, my living room, and tossed a bunch of my things into a box without asking. They didn't fit the aesthetic, she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was the first time a real spark of anger hit me. Not loud or dramatic, just a quiet realization that she didn't see our space as ours. She saw it as hers, and I was just occupying it. As the weeks passed, her comments got sharper, her demands less subtle. She'd question how I spent my money, who I texted, why I didn't do things the way she preferred, and somehow she always managed to twist it so I felt guilty for pushing back. I wasn't angry yet, but something inside me shifted, a small, steady awareness that this wasn't normal, and it wasn't accidental. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to take it, or how far I'd have to go to take my life back. Things really changed the day Denise borrowed my truck. I came out of work and found it missing from the lot. My first thought was theft. My second was her. She picked up on the first ring, sounding annoyed that I was calling. "Oh, relax," she said. "I just needed it. You weren't using it." I stood there in the cold, holding my phone like I'd accidentally dialed a stranger. She hadn't asked. She hadn't left a note. She'd just taken the one thing I needed for my job because it suited her in the moment. When she finally brought it back, she dismissed my frustration with a smirk. "You're being dramatic," she said. "It's not a big deal." But it was. It was the clearest proof yet that she didn't view anything in my life, my time, my belongings, my boundaries, as something she needed to respect. Everything was hers by default, and things escalated quickly after that. She started speaking for me in conversations more aggressively. If someone asked how I liked my job, she'd jump in. If someone asked what movie I wanted to watch, she'd answer before I opened my mouth. She told people I struggled with decision-making, as if she was helping me avoid embarrassment. Each time she said it, I felt a piece of myself shrink. Then came the money questions. I'd get home to find her sitting with my bank statements open, statements I never gave her access to. She'd circle purchases she thought were wasteful and leave them on the table like homework I'd failed. When I told her it wasn't okay, she spun it instantly. "I'm trying to help you grow up," she said. "Someone has to." That one sat heavy in my chest for days. I tried to set boundaries, calmly, rationally. I told her I needed space, that I didn't want anyone managing my finances, that she couldn't just take my truck whenever she wanted. But every conversation turned into the same loop. She'd deny, deflect, then accuse me of being ungrateful for everything she did for me. Manipulation works best when it makes you doubt your instincts. And for a while, she had me tangled in that doubt. The breaking point came 2 months later. I walked into my apartment, and found Denise hosting her sister and a couple of friends. Not a big deal by itself. But when I went to grab a drink from the fridge, all my groceries were gone, replaced by the expensive brand name stuff she liked, and I couldn't justify buying. Her sister laughed. "Denise said you don't mind. You're easygoing." I wasn't angry, I was numb, like I was standing in someone else's life. Later that night, after everyone left, I asked her why she kept making decisions that weren't hers to make. She sighed like I was exhausting her. "Because you never make them. You should be grateful someone cares enough to keep you on track." The words were so sharp, so deliberate, that something in me finally clicked into place. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't second-guessing myself. I wasn't imagining the pattern. She didn't want a partner. She wanted control. And every quiet, helpful gesture had been a slow tightening of the rope. I lay awake for hours that night staring at the ceiling, realizing just how much of myself I'd let her rearrange the same way she rearranged my living room, without permission, without respect, without a second thought. By morning, the decision was clear. I was done. But leaving someone who manipulates everything isn't as simple as packing a bag and walking out. Not when they've woven themselves into every corner of your life. So I made a different choice. I decided I'd let her own behavior do the heavy lifting. If she wanted control so badly, I'd give her just enough rope to show everyone else what she really was, without me raising my voice once. Once I realized arguing with Denise only fed her sense of control, I stopped pushing back. Not in a fearful way, more like a man stepping out of the way of a car that's already speeding toward a wall. I kept my tone steady. I agreed to things with a calm, almost bored nod. I let her have the spotlight she craved, and just like I expected, she overplayed her hand fast. The first step of my plan was simple. Document everything. Not dramatic spy stuff, just quiet notes, dates, times, what she moved, what she claimed, who she tried to control. Screenshots of messages where she corrected me or made decisions in my place. Photos of my missing groceries, my rearranged things. Bank notifications she triggered. Not for revenge at first, more to remind myself I wasn't imagining it. Then came the shift in strategy. I started inviting people over again. Friends she'd pushed away, my brother, my coworker, Pete. I told her ahead of time, casually, so she couldn't accuse me of hiding anything. Denise hated it. Whenever people visited, she tried to dominate every conversation, answering questions meant for me, correcting details I didn't need corrected. I didn't argue. I just let her talk. Let her showcase the exact behavior she tried so hard to frame as helpful when it was just the two of us. The more she seized control, the more uncomfortable everyone became. Not with me, but with her. I saw the looks, tight smiles, raised eyebrows. My brother pulled me aside after one dinner and whispered, "Man, is she always like this?" I didn't defend her. I just said, "Lately, yeah." Another piece clicked into place. The next part of my plan involved my landlord. Denise had started hinting that we should upgrade to a bigger place, meaning she wanted to move in permanently, but under her terms. She even suggested talking to him herself because she explained things better. So I let her. I told my landlord she'd be handling the conversation. He already didn't love her attitude the few times he'd run into her. So when she called him demanding repairs we didn't need, trying to negotiate rent and insisting I agreed with her, he was unimpressed. He called me afterward and asked if everything was okay. That gave me the perfect opportunity. I calmly explained that she wasn't authorized to make decisions on my behalf, and that all requests had to come directly from me. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't rant. I just stated facts. He made a note on my file and told me he'd back me completely. Now if Denise tried anything involving him, changing addresses, adjusting the lease, moving without my consent, it would bounce straight back to me. The rope tightened. The final stage came when she borrowed my truck again, except this time, I'd already installed a cheap dash cam and enabled the tracking app that she claimed was paranoid. She returned the truck with a fresh dent on the passenger side. When I pointed it out, she barely glanced at it. That wasn't me. Calmly, too calmly, I pulled up the footage. Clear as day, she clipped a parking pole while talking on the phone, cursing loudly, then wiping the side with her scarf like she could buff out metal. Her face went white. "Why were you recording me?" she demanded. "You took my truck without asking," I said. "Figured it was smart to have proof of where it went." She opened her mouth, closed it, then launched into a monologue about how I was invading her privacy, completely ignoring the fact that she'd damaged my property. She ended the tirade with a familiar line, "I was helping you. You overreact." Except this time, we weren't alone. My friend Pete had come by to drop off something he'd borrowed, and he heard the entire exchange from the hallway before stepping inside. He gave me a look that said everything. Denise saw it, and for the first time her confidence cracked. People were seeing her, not the version she painted, but the real one. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I didn't make a scene. I just let the truth sit in the air, plain and heavy. That night, she stormed into the bedroom and announced she was tired of being unappreciated and would be staying at her sister's for a while. I nodded once. Okay. She waited for me to fight, to beg, to chase. I didn't. She slammed the door behind her, and just like that, the revenge had already begun. She just didn't understand yet how much farther it would go, or how loudly her own actions would speak once I stopped hiding them. The morning after Denise left for her sister's place, the apartment felt lighter than it had in months. I could hear myself think again. I made coffee without someone hovering behind me, correcting how much sugar I used. I breathed without waiting for a sigh or a comment, or a question meant to steer me the right way. But I didn't rush to block her number or throw her things out. Revenge, the quiet kind, isn't about chaos. It's about clarity. And Denise had spent months building her image on the idea that she was the organized, responsible one, while I was somehow the messy project she had to fix. I wasn't going to tear that down with shouting. I was just going to let the truth walk itself right to her doorstep. It started with her sister texting me 2 days later, asking why Denise showed up with 3 suitcases, crying about how I didn't appreciate her hard work. I replied with a short, calm message. Ask her why she took my truck twice without permission and lied about damaging it. I attached the dash cam clip. No commentary, no anger. About an hour later, her sister wrote back, "Oh, I didn't hear from her again." Next came the people she'd tried to control. My friends, my family. Denise reached out to them one by one, spinning stories about how I'd suddenly become cold and unstable. Normally that might have worked, but by now everyone had seen her behavior firsthand. They remembered her taking over conversations, answering for me, criticizing things that didn't need criticizing. So when she pushed her narrative, it bounced back like a rubber ball. My brother told her, "I think he finally got tired of being managed." Pete didn't even respond. My landlord forwarded her message to me, asking if I wanted him to block her entirely from contacting his office. Piece by piece, every place she tried to regain control shut her out. And the best part? I never had to say a single cruel word. A week later, she came by to talk. She walked around the apartment like she expected everything to be exactly the way she left it. But I had quietly moved my things back to where they belonged. My books, my framed photos, my old jacket on the hook she once called embarrassing. She frowned like the room had betrayed her. "I feel like you're pushing me out," she said. I stayed calm. "You left. That's because you weren't appreciating what I was trying to do for you. That line used to twist me up inside. Not anymore. You weren't doing things for me, I said. You were doing things instead of me. She opened her mouth, but no defense came out. Not one that made sense anyway. Her stories weren't landing. Her tactics weren't working. Her audience wasn't buying it anymore. And she knew. After a long, shaky breath, she asked, "So, that's it? You're done with me?" I nodded once. Not cold, not angry, just finished. She looked around the room again, like she expected it to argue for her. Then she left without another word. Within a month, her social circle shrank. People started noticing the same patterns I had. She tried to control their plans, their decisions, their choices. Without someone to shield her behavior or justify it, the truth stood out in plain sight. I heard she moved to another town eventually. Maybe she'll figure herself out. Maybe she won't. As for me, I rebuilt my life piece by piece, quietly, steadily. I visited my mom again without guilt. I hung out with friends without worrying someone would correct my stories. I enjoyed the simple peace of making decisions that were actually mine. The moral isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes revenge is just stepping out of someone's grip and letting the world see what they've been doing all along. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.